What's up everybody, I'm Tim from Timber Ridge Gifts. So today's video we're going to be making zebra print embed container candles. Now doing a design on a pillar candle is pretty easy because once you're done you've got the candle exposed. So you've got the opportunity to clean up a little bit and make it look just right. But with a container candle you've pretty much only got one shot. Once you pour, everything's locked into the container, so you pretty much got what you got. And designs like this can be kind of tricky. But I'm going to show you with just a few simple tricks how we can end up with this result every time. So to start, let's check out some of the supplies we're going to need. So the first thing we're going to need is our container, obviously. Now you can pretty much use any type of container you want, but we're going to be working inside of it, so it's got to be big enough to get your hand inside. So a smaller person with little hands would be able to use something like this, but I've got these to deal with, so I'm going to have to use something this size. This is a half-gallon cookie jar. This is an Anchor Hawking brand. Just got this at Walmart. It's $6.99. Fairly inexpensive. Definitely great for larger candle projects. So we've got our container. Next thing we're going to need is a cookie sheet, wax paper, and a really sharp knife. So this is really all the specialty equipment that we need. The trick to pulling off these embed designs is actually in the wax that we're going to use. So let's check that out. So the main body of our candle is going to be made up of Golden Brand's 464 soy wax. We're choosing this one because of its low melting and pouring temperature. We'll talk about that more later. So for our actual embeds, we're going to be using beeswax. Not just any beeswax though. In this case, we actually want to find the cheapest beeswax we can. Reason being is the less refined beeswax tends to be a little bit stickier. You wouldn't want to use ultra refined or bleached or cosmetic grade beeswax because it's not going to have that tackiness that we're going to look for that's actually going to hold our embeds to the outside rim of our container. So we've got our unrefined beeswax. We're going to go ahead and melt it down. We're making zebra print, so we're going to use black candle dye. So let's go ahead and get this melted down and show you the next step. Alright, so we've got our beeswax melted down. Now we're going to get it ready to turn it into embeds. To do that, all we're going to do is just take our cookie sheet, line it with our wax paper, try and mold it in there the best we can to make a little tray out of it. Right, now we're just going to line our tray with the beeswax. The pouring temperature is going to be about 150 degrees. We're going to try to spread it out as evenly as we can. We're going for about 1/8 of an inch thickness in this. So we're going to let this cool. Should take about 3 or 4 minutes for it to be cool enough for us to move on to the next step. Alright, so this is cool enough for us to move on to the next step. So let's zoom in and check it out. Okay, so this is cool enough that we're going to go ahead and transfer it onto another sheet of wax paper. It's a little tricky to gauge when it's actually done. When it cools, you'll notice a haze forming over the top of it. And it's going to be fairly warm to the touch, but not what you would call hot. It's really hard to describe. You're just going to kind of have to get a feel for it. So we're just going to very carefully take it off of our cookie sheet without breaking it up. Just like that. If we let it get too cold, it's going to break up on us when we try to get it out of the cookie sheet. So we want to work with it while it's still kind of pliable. There we go. Now we're ready to cut out our zebra design. You can use any design you want. You can use like a cheetah pattern, or if you wanted to get really elaborate with it. I've just chosen a zebra design just because I like the way it looks. And it's a lot easier just to make the zebra stripes. There's a little bit more room for error. And it's more forgiving with my lack of artistic ability. And we're just going to make our zebra stripes. If it flakes up on you a little bit, that's okay. We can clean that up later. Main thing is now to go ahead and get it started while it's nice and warm. Okay, that should give us a good start. We're just kind of eyeballing how much we think we're going to need. Left a little bit over here so we can recut some more if I see that I'm going to need it to fill in my design. All right, now we're ready to start adding our zebra stripes to our container. Now, to get this ready, we're not going to do a whole lot. Just going to take our heat gun and just warm this up just a little bit. Not enough to get it really hot, just enough to take the chill off of it so this has a better chance of sticking. Alright, so we've got our jar warmed up a little bit. We've got our embeds cut. You notice I've already wicked it. In case you're wondering, these are it's double wicked with 2 Eco 14 wicks. That's about the appropriate size for this size jar. So now we're going to go ahead and start adding our zebra stripes. At this point we want it where it's a little bit pliable. You can see how I'm able to bend it a little bit. If you bend it too much it will break, but it's got just enough give on it to where I can mold it to the sides of the jar. I'm just going to take each piece and press it to the inside of the jar. Don't want to press so much that it's actually going to distort it, but give it enough pressure to where it's actually going to stick. This is where the tackiness of that lesser grade beeswax comes in handy. Now as you start to notice holes, we've got enough extra left over. We can start cutting to size now. And we are all done. We're going to give it a nice little check, make sure there's no holes to fill in. Now we're going to give it another quick blast with our heat gun. Not enough to melt anything, just enough to warm it up just a tiny bit. Give these embeds just a little bit better chance of sticking. Now we're going to stabilize our wicks and set this aside till it's time to pour. So this is all set. We're going to set this aside, get our soy wax ready, turn this into a finished candle. And one more thing about the design that we've chosen. We went with the zebra print just because it's a little bit more forgiving. You are going to have some bleed through. That is where the soy wax is going to get in between the embed and the glass jar. Once that happens, there's really no way to fix it with this type of candle. But with the zebra stripes, they're a little bit more forgiving than a really elaborate design. You know, if you had maybe a picture of a heart or a car and half the car got covered up, it'd be kind of hard to explain that away. But with the zebra stripe, you know, if a small part of the zebra stripe gets covered up, it just looks like a smaller zebra stripe. So it's a little bit more forgiving. So now it's time to wrap this up and turn it into a candle. For that, we're going to be using Golden Branch 464. We prepped this just like we would for any other candle. We melted to 150, added our fragrance oil. Now we've let it cool a lot. So we're going to pour this extremely cool to keep this from heating up our embeds, causing them to turn loose, or maybe getting up underneath them and ruining our design. For that, we've let it cool to about 95. That's 95 degrees Fahrenheit. For you international subscribers, I will do the conversion and add those in the description. I don't know them off the top of my head. We're not taught the metric system here, so I can't help you there. But we let it cool to 95. Now we're just going to pour. We're going to pour nice and real slow. We're going to try to hit the very center of the candle the entire time. We don't want it to move around a bit or splash up on the embeds. So we're just going to pour it down the center really slow. Now we just wait and let this cool and turn into a candle. Okay. And now that it's completely cooled, we've trimmed our wicks. And it's a candle. As you can see, we did have a little bit of bleed through. That's why you need to choose a design that's a little bit more forgiving. But for the most part, everything held. We've got a nice, beautiful zebra design on this container candle. With just a little bit of effort and some knowledge of different waxes, we can take the boring plain white one, add some nice flair to it. You guys make sure you subscribe to my channel, turn on the notifications, check out my other videos. Thanks for watching, everybody.